so this is a video that's intended for testing purposes as well as that will be used for documentation, and we'll use it for training. So here I'm actually using a cloud instance that's hosted on our test server, and just going to show it here. So this is the instance here. I'm going to bring it back eventually just to show some stuff. So some steps are not necessary if you're self-hosted, and I'll mention which one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create or modify some users. So from Basis, I've opened the desktop of Basis. I go to Settings, Users, and here I have 3 users for the iPads. So actually, if I want to look at it on the cloud, if I go to Basis and Users, I can see my 3 users. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another one. User 4, password 4444, and then the default warehouse and the default location. So now that I've created my user, I don't need to save it, it's saved automatically into the database. I'm going to go and send it to the cloud. So if I was self-hosted, all I would have to do is go and sync my product on the iPad, which I will do in a minute, but because I'm not self-hosted here, I'm going to send it to the cloud. So sending it to the cloud is just executing the batch file called db basis user. All the batch files can be put on the Windows scheduler. So I'm running it. I just finished running it, opened on my other screen a little black box that verified it. So now if I go on the cloud and I just look at it again, now I can see I have 4 users. So user 4 was just introduced. So running the batch file basically took the file from the local and sent it over. And as I mentioned before, if I'm self-hosted, I don't need to do that. So now if I want to get the users on the iPad, I just go to the iPad itself. In this case here, I don't even have to log in. I can just go to the sync button. That's acceptable from the settings. I go to sync and I sync users. Now that I've synced user, I can see my 4 users. So let's log in. User 1, password 1111, and I'm logged in. So now that I'm logged in, some of the other things that I could have synced that are just setting part, for example, the warehouses. So if I look at my warehouses in BV, I actually can see them by importing them directly into the desktop. So if I went here and I clicked on all warehouse, this is the import screen from Basis. I came into it by clicking on data transfer here. So when I click on data transfer, I can see all the modules that I can import. I'm going to click on import warehouses, and what that does is that it basically goes to BV and grabs my warehouse. And if I want to see them, I just have to uncheck this box here, which enables my warehouse location of choice here. And now I can see all my warehouses. So again, if I was self-hosted, all I would have to do on the iPad to update the warehouses on the iPad is just to go to the settings and sync them. And the settings, because I'm already logged in, I can actually go to the settings here and go to my sync here. There's a little more syncs from here, but I could have done it even if I was not logged in, because the users and the warehouses are necessary for logging in. That's why we can sync them before we get in. All the other syncs you can access once you came in. So in this case here, I just want to send my warehouses to the cloud. So again, I'm going to execute this stored procedures here. DB is any file that's executed that has a local DB, and the cloud DB starts with DB. If it was just CSV or Excel or XML, we would need a local DB and we would just send the stuff directly from here. So I'm going to again execute this, and it just opened and closed. So now if I go on to my cloud, this is my cloud interface here, and I went from user to user warehouses, and now again I can see all my warehouses. Once they're up here, actually we can monitor them or we can edit them. So I'm not going to spend too much time here on the cloud right now. I just want to show you that stuff is available here. So this is if I wanted to just edit the name, for example. I'm going to cancel that. Again, move this out of the way. My iPad back up. So I've got my warehouses and I've got my products. So I'm ready to get started on using some of the regular features of Basis. Let's focus first of all on inventory. So in order to do inventory, we need to have the products that are from BV. So here, there is a few things that need to happen. In order to have my inventory accessible on Basis, I can see it when I open this screen here. So it was imported before for those warehouses. But if I want to import, or if I make any change in BV, I need to import the data from BV into Basis. And that's done regardless if we want to do it for inventory or for orders or for shipping. Basis needs to know the items are in BV. So there is two ways of doing it. One is to just do a straight import. So I'm going to do that from the desktop. So to do an import from the desktop, I just go to data transfers. And from data transfers, I check which warehouse I want to import. So for example, if I wanted 50, 60, and 70, I would just click OK. It creates a string here that allows me to then import. There is a few options, and this will actually be remembered once we do an import. So delete before import is always a safe bet because you always want to start clean. BV Essential info if you're using BV Essentials. Additional info is not required unless there is something very specific that you're doing, and we can talk about that more into the implementation phase. And all the other ones are not really important. The only thing that on a general rule is delete before info, make sure you select the warehouse, and then the BV Essential info is one that's required only if you have BV Essentials. And then when you click on import, what it will do is it will take all the data from BV and put it into Basis, and then at the end it'll prompt you to send it to the cloud. Again, if you're self-hosted, you don't need to send it to the cloud because you are the cloud. But if you're not self-hosted, which is like 95% of the customer at this point, say yes to send it to the cloud. What that will do is that it'll import it, send it to the cloud so that it can be synced onto the iPad. There is another way of doing it, which we will set up with you once we get going, is in the Basis directory, which I'm bringing on the screen right now, we have a series of batch files. And one of the batch files is Basis II for Basis Import Inventory. If we just select this one, the Basis II file, it'll import all the files from all the warehouses. It will import, basically will run this function here. It'll import everything from all the warehouses. If we specify the warehouse at the end, then it'll import only that warehouse. So for example, Basis II00 will only import warehouse 00. So in this case here, if I wanted to have 3 warehouses imported on a regular basis, I would need 3 batch files. One Basis II50, one Basis II60, and one Basis II70. And what that would do is that would bring in my inventory on a regular basis, and those files, because they're batch files, they can actually be put on the Windows scheduler, or we can use a scheduling program that will run it usually once a day is sufficient. What they do is they don't replace, they only append any product that came in. So if we want to do a full replace, we can still do it from the desktop. So that's how we get the data from the cloud, from BV to here and to the cloud. So those batch files are designed to automatically import from BV and send to the cloud. So if we set them up, then we never need to worry about getting the products from BV anymore. So the last thing that we need to do once we've imported and sent to the cloud is we need to make sure that they're synced onto the iPad. And again, for the sake of automating certain things, we have some options here as well. So I'm going to go into my settings. If I just want to sync the inventory that was just imported, I would just click on the sync button here, and I would say sync inventory master, which would then just go through and import on my inventory master. It takes a second to do it. But the other option is to turn on the button that says auto sync on login, and what that would do is that every time we log into the Basis on the iPad, it would automatically take all the syncs that have been sent already, sync them onto the iPad, so I don't have to worry about it. In other words, if we want to make sure that we always have our product, always the latest product in the iPad, all we need to do is make sure that the batch files are running on the Windows scheduler, and then as long as the auto sync on login is enabled, then that's one less worry that we have. As soon as we want to do an import, as soon as we want to work on the products, they should always be up to date. And before I complete this section, I'm just going to mention that there is an easy way to verify if we have the up-to-date products. If we're looking for something, we can always go into basis inventory, and here we'll see everything that has been imported. If the item we're looking for is not here, that means something went wrong into the import. We can either verify the batch file or we can just redo an import. But the key factor here is the number of records that we have. So for example, here I have now 9,089 products, and when I go to basis on the inventory count screen, I did it a little too fast here. So here I make sure that I have 9,849 records. And if I want to know that those 9,849 records did make it to the cloud and did get synced to the iPad with my automation on, all I have to do is click on the inventory screen here and inventory count. And when I go here, if I look at the bottom, it'll tell me the number of items that are in the database on the iPad. So I want to make sure that this number of item, 9,849, matches with this number of item here, 9,849. As long as that happens, then we don't have to worry about it. That means that everything is synced and everything is working. Just for transparency, because I like to show how everything works, is the function that actually sends it to the cloud is this one here, dbasis inv-mast. So what we do is we run the batch file, which are the batch files that actually run basis locally to import the information. And then in our client API batch file, the one that we actually run is the basis inv-mast that takes it from the local and sends it to the cloud.